And welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 244. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvang. I'm joined now by a very special guest, CC Hockley of Full Press AHL, who covers the Avs and the Eagles. He's also a co-host of the Calder Farmstead podcast and the Front RNG Hockey podcast. So welcome to the show, CC.
Thank you very much. Quite the introduction, Blaine. I appreciate it.
You cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, I do. It's busy. Excuse me. It's busy hockey season out here in Denver, Colorado. So it's busy hockey, period. Not just a season. It's just hockey. So, and covering the AHL as well, 31, soon to be 32 teams, it's a labor of love. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. Mile high hockey and mile long, work ethic here. Look at this.
I like that. Thank you. Nicely said. You had to convert from kilometers, but
well,
that was good.
I try.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bud. Thank you.
Yeah. English being the second language, I had to work hard to work on that one.
I mean, you could have fooled me. Well done.
I fooled my wife with a lot of other things too. So you're not the first.
Okay. Well, I'll tuck that underneath my hat and keep it. Of course, it's in podcast land, so everyone knows now.
Oh, yeah. Her bad taste in men is not my problem.
That's fair.
All right. So I brought you on. We the Canadians and the Avalanche completed a trade. Colorado gets Arturi Lehkonen. Montreal gets Justin Barron. So I wanted to go over a little bit of that, and we're going to cover a lot with the AHL as well. But
sure,
I just wanted to get started right away in the meat and potatoes of this and talk about Justin Barron. Now, I live in Halifax. I've known Justin since he was about 14 years old, helped coach him in some of the summer camps, go skating with him in the summertime since he's been drafted. But you've been watching him closely. So can you give us an update on what kind of progression he made since his draft year?
So I know obviously the big story with Justin Barron coming into the draft was blood clots. Everyone was concerned. That's why his draft stock fell just a little bit. He was still drafted in the first round by the Avs and everything like that. But I made a note. I had to go back through my notes, and I looked at this game that I covered with Justin in the Colorado and Tucson series in early January. And I just wrote, and it's just a real simple note, just in the end of the second period. I love the awareness and skating of Justin Barron. It's just that one sentence. It just typifies everything. And he has improved so much. The Avs, they did Justin well because they stapled him to probably one of the best defensemen in the AHL in Jacob McDonald. And they put him on that pairing with Jacob McDonald. And I actually talked to Justin a little bit in November of last year. And I asked him what it was like playing with McDonald. And Justin said that he helped slow down the game for him. And so as you know, as a hockey player, if things are going too fast, it's overwhelming. It's just sensory overload. And that's never good for a hockey player. But for Justin to say that, and for a veteran guy like Jacob McDonald to really, again, slow down the game for this rookie and to be able to shape his game as much as he has at the AHL level this year. I mean, there's a lot of critics and everything that are like, well, he looked okay. And I mean, the pandemic year in the AHL, it's like, it was just kind of a year to get some practice games in. Justin had a goal and 3 assists in only 7 games played last season, but he's really improved his skills. Again, his skating, his awareness. It's really been fun to see him, put that hockey IQ, the puck possession, the tape to tape passing. I mean, hell, the Eagles even put him on the first power play unit last season, and they've continued to do that this season as well. Avs have really dedicated, when they had him, they really dedicated themselves to developing him and developing his strengths. He's a fantastic two-way defenseman. And I, wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 4 NHL defenseman down the line. So I could gush and gush. I mean, it's been really fun to see his development and his improvement. And I'm sure it's, very validating for you, like you said, having coached him and everything there in Halifax, just that he's continued to build on those skills and that natural ability that he had when he was a 14-year-old and up.
Yeah. And he's always prided himself on being able to play in any single situation. He always fought to get the penalty kill time and the little apple, the little little carrot there for the power play. He wasn't someone that just wanted to put in the fancy stuff. He wanted to do the meat and potatoes work too, because he felt that that made him more versatile. Did you see that in Colorado?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he could be deployed in a multitude of scenarios. Like, I mean, obviously, maybe not as a forward out there or anything, but that was Jacob McDonald's shtick for a while, a couple seasons ago. He was a forward and defenseman. But no, Justin Barron, I mean, just the fact that he, again, he could play those power play minutes. He could be paired with a Jacob McDonald. He ended up getting paired with Keaton Middleton as well. So much different kind of defenseman than Justin Barron when those two were paired together. But yeah, the fact that, again, his major strength being skating, effectively moving the puck down the ice in that way, defense, taking guys man to man, being able to seamlessly transition from a man to man to kind of more of a zone defense. I mean, he can really do it all. He is the epitome of a two-way defenseman. So yeah, I would agree with you. He's just, he is very capable in a multitude of scenarios, and he knows how to keep his head and keep his composure if the play falls apart on the defensive end of the puck. And when on the offensive end of the puck, he knows what to do and not panic if he's got the opportunity to assist or even score a goal.
Now, Colorado, the Eagles, the AHL Eagles, they're currently in fourth in the AHL in their division. So they're fighting for that last playoff spot. They've been there pretty much tooth and nail all season long. So how has that affected Justin, who's been playing in that second pairing role?
So the AHL did a funny thing this season. They actually expanded the playoffs. And so the Eagles haven't had to worry about it too much. I mean, they started off on a 5-game losing streak, and that's never fun for a club, but they really put it together. They had a lot of new guys on the roster, as AHL clubs often do, coming into a year. But Justin really got a chance to, like I said, McDonald went down with an injury. He got a chance to be with McDonald for the first part of the season. And then he kind of went down with an injury in November and December, if my memory serves me correctly. But the Eagles have never, so the first 7 teams, there's 9 teams in the Pacific Division out in the AHL this year, soon to be 10, which is baffling to me when you have 7 teams in other divisions, but I digress. But the Eagles have been kind of in the middle of the pack the whole time. So they've continued to win games. They have a rookie goaltender in Justus Anunen, and so to protect him and to build a defensive core from him, I think that's really the only pressure that the defensemen have had to do. Their first line pairing of Dennis Gilbert, who is, you want to talk about a guy that can sacrifice and block shots. And he's just a great defensive defenseman for the Eagles. And then of course you've got Jordan Gross, who is one of the best offensive defensemen in the AHL currently, points. He's in the top 3 points wise for most of the season and everything like that. So it really took the pressure off of Justin being paired with McDonald or being paired with Middleton. They didn't have to throw him in that first pairing slot with anybody. He really had an opportunity, and I'm glad the Avs did it, because as well as I do, yo-yoing prospects, even between lines like that, it can be difficult, especially for a rookie, especially if you did the NHL and AHL, which the Avs are pretty good about. They don't tend to yo-yo prospects back and forth. If they're going to stick them in the AHL, they're usually good about that. And if they stick them in the AHL and let them marinate a little bit, there's a couple guys, Cale Makar, Bo Byram. Don't know if you've heard of those guys before.
No, who are those guys?
But no, doesn't ring a bell. So with those young guns up there, and when Bo Byram's healthy, of course, Justin can marinate and improve and develop, and you really utilize the Eagles for what it is, and the AHL being a developmental league.
Now, there's been a lot of issues in Montreal with their developmental system. You're describing the kind of system that people who have covered the team in Montreal now have been quietly and then very loudly stating they wanted to see. So is this just an approach that they've taken because they're deep on defense, or is this their approach with everyone?
I mean, I would say Justin's he's really kind of the only like major defensive prospect that's been sitting down in the AHL. And, they've got Martin Kaut. You want to talk forward prospects, Martin Kaut's playing in his fourth season as a professional down the AHL there. So forwards wise, Shane Bowers, and then, guys that you call up, your Kiefer Sherwoods, your Dylan Securas. I would say that they're pretty standard across the line. Like whether it's forwards, whether it's defensemen, whether it's goaltenders, they don't tend to yo-yo guys as often as I've seen other clubs in the AHL or the NHL parent clubs doing with their AHL teams. I think they're pretty good across the line of once guys are down there, unless some catastrophic injuries have occurred and they need to call up those veterans. Like I said, Sherwood, Sekura, Maltsev, Mikhail Maltsev's another name that's played a few games for the Avs this season. So yeah, once you get beyond the injuries and everybody's healthy, I mean, there's really no reason to do it. And yeah, I'd say, across the board, they're pretty good about it.
Now, the development that he's shown, Barron has since he's been drafted has been it's been impressive. You've seen it. People on the East Coast have seen it, namely Sidney Crosby, who yesterday said that it was a mistake that Colorado traded him. And he flat out said, I would never have done this in regards to trading Justin Barron. Now, Colorado is deep as hell on defense. And was it really necessary to give up a top prospect to get a defensive forward? Like, can you give us a little bit of a background on what the real needs were in Colorado?
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to not hear the Giroux news and Colorado wanting, it was Colorado and Florida. I mean, yeah, he rejected the Boston deal, rejected the Rangers deal. So Colorado needing to add depth at the forward position, and looking to the future as well, because Nazem Kadri has had a career year. He's probably going to sign somewhere else because of the fact, I mean, and who can blame him? He's going to make bank this offseason,
He doesn't get suspended in the playoffs again.
Well, then there's that. So when your reputation precedes you and anyway, but yeah. So you got Kadri, you've got, the McKinnons and the Rantanens and the Landeskog's, and you've got these guys that they're not old by any means, but they're getting advanced in their NHL careers. They're late 20s, early 30s coming up. And to have a young guy, to have a young defensive forward like Lehkonen coming in and to acquire him the way they did, that can also contribute. I mean, I think I saw somewhere that he scored or has contributed to points on like 93% of his shifts on the ice this year.
Yeah, he's been extremely effective in generating chances.
Yes. And I think I read that on an article, like the Hockey Writers, I think Blaine Pavine. Yeah.
Some guy named Blaine. I don't know.
Yeah. He puts out pretty good work. I pay attention. But yeah, back to Lucky, to have a young guy in that defensive forward role, and to be a middle six guy for the time being, and to continue to deploy him and to get better, it's like, it was a great acquisition in my opinion for the Avalanche, and it sucks that they had to lose Justin Barron for it, because he does have that upside. He does have that top four defenseman upside in the NHL. And so, but honestly, like you said, the defense is pretty stacked. You have Makar and Tays on that first line. You have Byram, again, once he's healthy, gonna just give him as much time as he needs. But once he's healthy, the acquisition of Josh Manson from the Anaheim Ducks, getting a little bit bigger of a defenseman in there too. So, and you have kind of this log jam at the position, forwards, you got four lines, defensemen, you've only got six guys. So parting with Barron in regards to, like you said, bringing in that defensive forward, it was, Joe Sakic, he does what he does. And I think in the long run, the Habs are going to benefit for sure. But the Avs, with all the acquisitions, Cogliano, like I mentioned, Manson and Lehkonen and Nico Strum. I've almost forgot the pre-trade deadline day. It felt like felt like trade deadline, man. It just bashed us over the head with trade after trade after trade, refresh on Twitter. It's like, all right, what's next? But yeah, just the fact that Sakic went out and made those moves instead of picking up like the guys that like the Soderbergs and, the guys that he did a couple years ago for that playoff run. I enjoyed that. I think it was a good move.
Now, do you feel like the playoff run last year where they came up short against Vegas really set the tone for this deadline?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't see how Sakic couldn't have that in his mind. Just the fact that he's got a team built on speed and you need a couple of those guys. They go and pick up Curtis McDermott. They go and pick up, again, Josh Manson, and they go and pick up, these guys that are a little bit more gritty and a little bit more, to keep the other team honest. And Vegas, watching that series last year, they kind of ran roughshod over the Avs. And so it happened a couple of years before that with Dallas as well in the second round. So to get over that hump, to get to the Western Conference final, to get to the Stanley Cup final, that's the goal for any team coming into the playoffs, you'd hope. And so, yeah, I have no doubt that Sakic had that lingering in his mind when the deadline was approaching.
I know Nate really wants that Stanley Cup, and I don't blame him.
Yes. Another Halifax Mooseheads guy there.
Yeah, exactly. We got some
Yep.
Shane Bowers as well. He's another Halifax guy.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, with Lehkonen, he provides some of that grit that you guys were just missing a little bit, and he did score the overtime winner to eliminate Vegas. So, did that raise his value to Sakic in any way?
I mean, possibly. I mean, you can't. I mean, the way Cole Caulfield and Arturi Lehkonen. I mean, both of those guys, the way that the young guns. And of course, I mean, you can't mention those guys without mentioning Suzuki as well. So, I mean, the future is so bright for those guys in Montreal that all three of them have to wear shades. That's the thing, that they all got to wear sunglasses. It's just, but yeah, you can't deny it. You can't ignore that. And his, I believe his overtime winner against the Avs recently as well. Yeah, when you're on the radar like that, I mean, people are going to notice. And Sakic is a very savvy GM, and he notices these things. He notices those glimmers and those glimpses of like, okay, this guy's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of potential. He's already performing at a great NHL level, and he's only going to get better. So absolutely, Sakic pays attention to those little details, and you can bet he was on the horn with Montreal pretty quick, probably on the deadline day and probably a few weeks before then.
How much of an impact is the cap with this? Because you mentioned Nazem Kadri possibly leaving for big money, and you do have Shane Bowers, you do have Alex Newhook. There is a relief that's on its way, but how much of an impact would it be on the cap? Because Lehkonen is expected to be asking around $4 million. Is that doable in Colorado?
I think so. Newhook still has a couple years on his ELC, his entry level contract. Yeah, I think that could be a possibility. I mean, I know Burakovsky is making 4.9 million. And then he's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely doable. I think it's definitely a possibility. And I think it's in the Avs' best interest to lock him up, because he's not going to be a middle six guy forever. He's going to be a top six guy. And, once you got your other forwards aging out, if Lehkonen is, staying with the organization long-term, then why not a first line forward grouping, in down the road? Who knows what that shakes out. But I think cap wise, I think it is doable. It's just taking advantage of Newhook's last two seasons on his entry level contract. And of course, your younger guys, just taking advantage of them being on those less expensive deals,
especially when they're being productive like Newhook has been.
Absolutely.
So in your view, this is an all-in season for Joe Sakic? Certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah. The deals, I think, they were much more kind of concentrated. Like he just seemed to want to address all the needs, to bring in the vet in Cogliano, to bring in the bigger defenseman in Manson, to bring in, the defensive forward, the young defensive forward in Lehkonen, to bring in those guys and to shed cap space. I think that's kind of an underrated move,
Oh yeah.
with sending Jost to the Wild and to bring in Nico Sturm. It's that's the age that we live in the NHL. So is it an all-in year? I'll just simplify it, because I can go on and rattle on for, I'm a man of many words and a lot of hot air, but in a word, yes, they're going all in this year.
Which to me explains why he's willing to pay a premium at this deadline to bring in what some people would think is an overpayment. But at the same time, if you're filling a need and it does get you to the promised land, no one's going to care.
Right. And Montreal's filling a need as well, getting a righty defenseman,
Oh my God, they're so short there. Now, looking at the Canadiens and knowing Justin Barron like you do, the Canadiens, as we record, it's Saturday the 26th, they're due to play Toronto. He is not expected to play tonight. More than likely, he's going to play Sunday night against the Devils, because they don't want to throw him in against one of the top Eastern teams. They want to set him on the right path. So you go against the Devils, who are a tough team, but they're not the Leafs. So
right.
Where do you see him fitting in for the remainder of this season? Do you see him being as impactful at the NHL level with the Canadiens as he was with the Eagles?
I would say no. I think he's got a little bit more marinating, maybe another season or two in the AHL. I think that would be healthy for him. Just stick him in Laval and let him, as I would say, ball out, but we're playing hockey here. We're dealing with a puck. So puck out, just let him go off. There we go. But yeah, I mean, I think he would benefit more in Laval personally. I mean, he's a great hockey player. Don't get me wrong there. But when you've got young guys that are still, like I said, I keep using that word, marinating, developing in the AHL. That's what it's there for. Don't just yo-yo your guys. I mean, yeah, put them out there against New Jersey, kind of showcase your new acquisition, your shiny new guy over there. But I'd say for long-term, you can keep him in Laval and let him grow, let him develop. And then, like I said, after a season, maybe two, you can bring him up to Montreal. Again, the track record isn't very favorable. I know Caulfield was with the Rocket, and it's like, oh, I got to bring him up. They were very impatient about that. But can you blame him? Yeah, you can. I mean, it can be easy to get impatient, I bet.
Yeah, and the issues he had were less to do with development and more to do with coaching at the NHL level.
Right.
As we've seen since he's just exploded since the new coach showed up.
Yeah, that short king, coming in and behind the bench and standing another short king, as the kids say these days.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's been an impact there. Now, the plan with Barron, to get back on track a little bit, the plan with Barron was to let him play a little bit this season and then send him back to Laval, because he is still eligible to play in the playoffs. And Laval is looking to make a longer run.
Sure.
So how much of an impact or how much weight do you put on AHL playoff games towards development?
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. I think whether you're playing in major juniors or the AHL or even the ECHL, I think playoff hockey has a different weight to it. The postseason, the fans are, they're more fervent. It's just a playoff hockey atmosphere. It's a different monster. So to get guys in there and to have them play those AHL playoff games, and for Justin Barron to do so for Laval and in that North Division there, you've got the Marlies that are tough. You've got the, Rochester, if they can figure out their goaltending situation, it feels like they're always going through goaltenders, for one reason or another between Buffalo and Rochester. But that North Division, Utica, how could I fail to mention Utica? They're going to be a tough one this year too. So to get Justin against those tough North Division teams and to get him used to facing some North Division hockey, especially in the playoffs, can't be anything but a benefit in my eyes.
Yeah, there's something to be said for style of hockey, because there is a definite difference between the West and the East in the style of play.
There is.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now we'll get a little bit onto the Canadiens here. This is a Habs show, so I'll ask you a few questions there. looking at what the Canadians are doing, do you see a parallel between what Joe Sakic did at the start of his tenure in Colorado?
A little bit, especially with the refresh that the Habs have going on. I mean, it was a tumultuous time. I mean, and it's been so up and down for Montreal, going to the Stanley Cup final, against Tampa Bay. And then it just with the coaching carousel a little bit, and now getting St. Louis behind the bench, it's like, it's crazy to me. Like just how, I'm like, what is going on in Montreal? Like you guys have been spoiled in regards to that Stanley Cup appearance. And then it just felt like the wheels fell off, and then the coaching changes happened. And then, yeah, it's a little reminiscent of I believe 16-17 for the Avalanche when they finished dead last, historically bad season for the Avs. And then to turn it around and to rebound and to get, at the top of the league, to get that President's Trophy, last season, and then a few seasons before that, it's just, or to get the division a few seasons before that, not the President's Trophy, but there are some parallels. There are some similarities here, and it'll be interesting to see how Montreal navigates it moving forward, and to be willing to make those moves to part with a young prospect like a Lehkonen. Yeah, I mean, it shows willing to grow and willing to part with some guys, especially to address a need like a right-handed defenseman, like we talked about. So that shows growth. That shows maybe turning a corner a little bit. So yeah, I could see a little bit of a parallel from when Sakic took over as GM here in Colorado.
Now, Kent Hughes, the GM, mentioned in a recent interview that he's going to be taking a different approach to the draft that the Canadians have not had in quite some time, and that's willing to trade up, willing to move picks, willing to move B-level prospects to get the guy he wants. That sounds a lot like what Joe Sakic had done with his draft plan.
Yeah, it does. And he picked a few guys higher up the card, as it were, in the draft, higher up the draft board, rather. Cale Makar, Bo Byram, and even some of the sleeper picks in the in the later first round, like Justin Barron, and you go on down the line and everything like that. And Justus Sanunen, he's in goal. He's been placed in net for probably 60 or 70% of the games. I think he's second in the AHL in minutes played. Like they are just hitching the wagon to him. And it's like, all right, you're going to be in the NHL sooner than later. So we're just going to get you as much practice here, get you used to North American hockey. But yeah, back to the draft again, a little sidebar there, but back to the draft. And I think acquiring, and I think, kind of taking the Joe Sakic model of general management and applying it in Montreal might not hurt.
I think it would be an improvement. To be honest.
I mean, they're willing to try most anything these days, I'm sure, but to model yourself after one of the best franchises in the NHL and how they're doing it and how they're developing guys and how they're developing their stars. I think that's an important thing looking forward, again, with Caulfield, with Suzuki. And then, gosh, I mean, trying to think like what it's going to look like here, because it's just so much is not in flux, but just I feel like there's like been such big paradigm shifts in Montreal that the future is going to look interesting. And if they are trying to model it after Sakic's GM model, then you really can't go too wrong, I wouldn't think.
I don't know if they're purposely modeling it after him, but I've definitely seen some major parallels between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even if he does it accidentally and it works the same way, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Accident. Oh, we fell into a playoff worthy team. Oh, okay.
Oops, I tripped over this cup contender.
Let me just put this label on my suit jacket here. Cup contender. Yes. Okay.
There we go.
I'll take this. All right. Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to take a quick break and speak of a different kind of cup. Boxing Rock Brewing Company's Puck Off Beer. Our partners at Boxing Rock create an amazing product. So for our listeners, if you got up at the break of dawn and spent all day drinking rink coffee while cheering your team under your hockey blanket, you and your dedicated waves deserve a super refreshing, perfectly normal beer to share with friends. So me and my friends at Beer League use puck off quite often, and I suggest people in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, give that a try. So that's Boxing Rock Brewing Company puck off beer. So get the sponsor in there. And
Send some my way, will you?
yeah. Well, I do have 16 cases I have to give away.
The question is, does shipping to Denver make it worth? I mean,
might.
and the Mile High, the cans might get a little, carbonation, and
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know.
if Coors Light can survive up there, I'm sure this can.
That's very true.
This is real beer, so
That's fair. That is fair. I'll touche.
I say that as a joke, partially because Molson also owns Coors, so there's that tie in there.
There is that tie in there. Yes.
Coors
is just a hop and a skip away over in Golden. So.
Yep, I've sampled the product up there a couple times.
Sampled or more than sampled?
I still remember, so I'm going to say sampled.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll accept that answer.
Things start to get phase, kind of fuzzy, then I'll say more than.
Gotcha. That's the line.
That's my standard
right there. That's the standard.
All right. So I just wanted to finish this off on Lehkonen. So he's got a very, very dedicated fan base. You're going to notice a bit of a bump in following and talk of Lehkonen on your social media. And one term that will pay off for you in the long run is to use the term good stick Lecky.
Yes.
Because he is very good at using his stick for gap control. So it'll pay off.
I actually worked with a gal over at another website in my hockey writing endeavors, and her name is Deanna McFerrin.
Yes, Deanna's a listener and friend.
Yes.
So
D, yes. Hey, D, what's up? So D, I actually recruited her to work for this website. She had never done hockey writing before, loved the game, could tell she knew her stuff, and she just thrived, and she continues to thrive. And it's amazing to see her growth and her journey now as an associate editor of this site that I used to write for. And of course, her Twitter handle to wrap it all up in a nice little bow is Good Stick Lecky. So
she is definitely one that would hate you if you did use it.
Right. right. Yeah. And she, living, I mean, yeah, Colorado is kind of a second team to her. And so this was kind of a natural thing. If it were to happen, then, but yeah, Good Stick Lecky. Yeah. I'll the clip, the one that sticks out in my mind where he's walking to the locker room and right at the end of the clip, you hear one of his teammates go, Good Stick Lecky. It's just hilarious. It's like, I think this will catch on in Colorado. He's going to be, that's the thing is like Colorado is very quick to embrace like those personalities and those kind of catchphrases and everything like that, especially if they do well on the ice. That never hurts either, but yeah, to kind of have that total package to be well on the ice, to have that personality, to have that presence and even kind of a catchphrase, as it were. Denver is a very loving city when it comes to their hockey team and a very loving city when it comes to their young hockey guys. So Good Stick Lecky.
Yeah, there's one of my coworkers at the Hockey Writers, Ryan Sporzer. He's going to be putting out some work on who Canadiens fans should be jumping on the bandwagon for. And my vote in our little Slack chat was for Colorado, simply because Lehkonen's there. I have a lot of ties to some of the players there because they're from Halifax. So I voted them. So be ready for a bandwagon bump.
I'm ready for it. And it's a welcome thing. It's very strange to me. It's kind of another sidebar. I'm good at those, Blaine, as you've probably noticed. Good or bad at those, take your pick. But I noticed in the past that like there was kind of a goalie like trade program between Montreal and Colorado for the past 25 years. Like obviously from when Colorado moved from Quebec, but just guys like Jose Theodore. And of course, even, early days, Jocelyn Thibault, to throw back way back then, but Peter Budaj, It's like, it's amazing just the connection between Colorado and Montreal's had on the goalie end of things, but you don't see a trade happening between, a forward and a defenseman. Of course, it's just, there's always been that connection for me, being a guy that kind of observed that when I was younger, and to see kind of how that, like, oh, okay, there's that little bit of connection there, that phone line is open between Colorado and Montreal. So if the Montreal fans want to come on and hop on board the bandwagon, there's a lot of room. There's a lot of seats, upgraded, bilingual, there we go. We're ready to go.
Man, I was almost over the Patrick Roy trade, and then you bring it up again, and it hurts.
I didn't
It
say Patrick
hurts.
Roy.
No, you didn't need to.
I didn't say
Didn't
Patrick
need
Roy.
to. That just flashbacks.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't say Patrick Roy. There was a reason for that. I mentioned all those other goalies. I didn't say Roy.
But you said Tebow, and that was enough.
No. That's fair. That's fair. That is completely fair. Sorry.
Although, to be fair, knowing that trading Roy to Colorado in their first year after moving from Quebec and watching them win the cup and Quebec not having it, that was, I could live with that.
I was gonna say that was probably pretty sweet for you guys. You're like, okay,
yeah,
I'll allow it.
Yeah, screw you, Nordiques.
Ouch.
To this day, screw you.
Wow, 25 years later.
Yep.
25 plus years later. Damn.
Well, you get into a brawl at Pepsi Cuddy C with your dad and some Nordiques fans. It leaves a mark.
Wow.
Yep.
That is like family bonding, team bonding. Like,
right.
Wow, that's
almost Nate Beaulieu levels of parental bonding, except we didn't start it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, you were approached on that level.
Yes. So I just wanted to finish this off and give you the opportunity to tell my listeners where they can find you and your work.
So, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned in the introduction, so eloquently put, Blaine, I write for Full Press Hockey. So fullpresshockey.com, a division of Full Press Coverage, great website for all different kind of sports. We even cover pro wrestling too. So that's pretty neat. If you're into the pro wrestling scene, we got you covered. Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, just a bit. And don't forget to send Hook. But anyway, moving on from that. Full Press AHL. The Twitter handle for that is FPC_AHL. FPC, of course, standing for Full Press Coverage. My personal account is CC Hawk, SEESEEHAWK. Obviously kind of a riff on my first two initials there, but you can follow me at those places on Twitter. And then of course you mentioned the Calder Farmstead, me and Sean O'Brien, we cover the AHL. We are approaching 100 episodes ourselves. So we've been doing this for a minute, covering the AHL, and the coverage is just going to get dialed to 11 as we come up on the AHL postseason here. But, the Calder Farmstead, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on pretty much any podcast platform. And Front Range Hockey, me and Scott McDonald. He's been taking a little break, taking a little siesta. Yeah, maybe not siesta. That's not the right word. Sabbatical. Taking a little sabbatical before the postseason, but then he'll be back on board. Front Range Hockey, again, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on any podcast platform. I'm a busy man.
You gotta get that hustle in. You gotta make those pennies.
It's very true. And there's a gang of AHL writers that I'd be remiss to not bring up. Courtney Bauman covers the Rockford IceHogs. Elaine Shercliffe covers 4 teams, Cleveland, and 3 teams in the Central Division. She does
Elaine does
good
work.
Elaine does very good work. Jacob Stoller is he's a young up and coming, he's becoming a player. Great work for Manitoba, great analytics work as well. And go follow, last but not least, go follow Sean O'Brien. He is just an amazing, he's an amazing analytics guy. I cannot say enough about him. And I'm just completely brain farting on his Twitter handle. It is Sean O'Brien 81. I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why.
It's right there in the name.
I haven't had my coffee yet. What's that? It's his name.
Right there in the
exactly.
Name.
Sean O'Brien. Brian is spelled BRIEN 81. Just go follow his stuff. His AHL analytics work is phenomenal. If you have any questions about any AHL prospects, his Twitter feed and his website is great. And Blaine, last but not least, I want to use this moment to say I was pleasantly surprised when you reached out. It's great to talk hockey. It's great to talk Colorado hockey. And again, I've been following you on Twitter for a while now, and for you to reach out and say, hey, come on the show, CC. It's been an honor and it's been a pleasure, man. You're good people. So thank you, sir.
Don't tell people that. I have a
I'm
reputation.
sorry. Okay. All right. You're a dirty rat, Blaine.
Better. No, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you jumping on like this, especially, just on a couple of days notice. I like I've been following you as well. I've been reading a lot of the work from Full Press. We follow a lot of the same people. I rely on you guys quite a bit for the further AHL picture, as opposed to just that myopic view of just that one team system that I cover. Right. So I suggest to everyone, spread your wings, try different teams, check it out. So again, thank you very much for coming on, and good luck in the playoffs.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And hey, at least you got Laval to look forward to and see how they do in the postseason.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit less.
I do what I can.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you, Blaine.